It was a crisp Saturday morning, and the Harper family was buzzing with excitement as they loaded up their dark blue SUV for a long-awaited mountain getaway. James Harper, a meticulous planner and outdoor enthusiast, checked off every item from his list twice: sleeping bags, portable stove, lanterns, extra batteries, and enough food to last a week. His wife, Laura, cheerfully packed snacks for the road, humming along to a classic tune playing on the radio. Their two children, Ethan, 13, and Mia, 10, dragged their backpacks across the driveway, still half asleep but excited for the adventure ahead. The trip was meant to be a reset, a break from the noise of the city and the digital distractions of everyday life. They were headed to Black Pine Ridge, a remote and heavily wooded mountain range with few visitors and no cell signal. James had read about a secluded camping spot beside a hidden lake, far from the usual trails. It was perfect, he said, quiet, peaceful, and untouched. Before leaving, Laura took a photo of the family in front of the fully packed SUV. Everyone smiled. It was the kind of candid family photo you'd find in a vacation album, meant to capture the beginning of a joyful journey. No one knew it would become a critical clue in a growing mystery. The family waved to a neighbor who was walking his dog, then drove off down the tree-lined street. At a gas station 45 minutes later, they were caught on CCTV filling up the tank and grabbing snacks. James chatted briefly with the clerk about the weather, clear skies and mild temperatures. Nothing unusual. The family was calm, happy, and completely unaware that they would never return. As they drove deeper into the forest, the paved road gave way to gravel and dirt. The canopy thickened, swallowing the light, and silence replaced the hum of traffic. That was the last time anyone saw or heard from the Harper family. And it would be 3 long weeks before anyone got a clue about what really happened. 2 days had passed since the Harper family was expected to return home. At first, no one thought much of it. Maybe they decided to extend their trip. James was known to be spontaneous, and Laura often joked about living in the woods if she could. But by the 3rd day, unease began to grow. Laura hadn't responded to texts from her sister, and Ethan's school reported he hadn't shown up for classes. The family dog, left with a neighbor, had yet to be picked up. Something was off. Laura's sister, Karen, was the first to act. She drove to their home and found the house exactly as they'd left it, locked, dark, and undisturbed. The mailbox was full. A sense of dread settled in. She called the police and filed a missing persons report. Though it hadn't been long, something felt wrong, like an invisible line had been crossed. The local authorities began by retracing the Harpers' last known movements. The neighbor confirmed seeing them leave that Saturday morning. Security footage from the gas station matched the timeline. After that, there were no further sightings, no phone pings, no credit card activity. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. By day 5, a formal search and rescue operation was launched. Dozens of volunteers, forest rangers, and even tracking dogs were deployed across Black Pine Ridge. Helicopters scanned the forest canopy while ground teams combed trails and checked every known campsite. After hours of hiking through thick brush and uneven terrain, a search party stumbled upon a discovery: the family's SUV parked neatly on the side of an old dirt path, partially hidden beneath overgrown branches. It was locked. Inside were their belongings: backpacks, food wrappers, and camping gear, everything except the family themselves. Nearby, footprints were found, leading into the woods, but they stopped abruptly near a dry creek bed. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no broken branches. Just silence. The forest offered no answers, only more questions. Where had they gone, and why hadn't they come back? The search intensified as more days passed without a single trace of the Harper family. By now, the story had made headlines in local news, drawing the attention of more volunteers and several professional search and rescue teams. Dozens of people swarmed the Black Pine Ridge area with maps, radios, and survival gear, determined to find the missing family. Helicopters hovered overhead, scanning the treetops with thermal cameras, while trained dogs scoured the forest floor, sniffing for any scent that could lead to a clue. But every day ended the same way, empty-handed. The terrain proved to be a challenge. Black Pine Ridge was not only vast but rugged, with dense thickets, rocky inclines, and sudden drops. The deeper one ventured, the darker and more silent the forest became. Some searchers admitted feeling a strange heaviness in certain parts of the woods, an unnatural stillness that made even experienced hikers uneasy. Radios sometimes cut out unexpectedly. Compasses spun erratically. Still, they pressed on. Then, near the end of the first week, a breakthrough, at least, it seemed like one. A group found what appeared to be the Harpers, campsite deep within a remote section of the forest, far from any established trails. The tent was set up neatly, undisturbed. There was a small fire pit with charred wood, as if it had recently been used. Inside the tent were sleeping bags, the children's jackets, and half-eaten food. It looked as though the family had just stepped away and might return at any moment. But there was something unsettling. There were no signs of distress, no blood, no signs of a struggle, no torn clothing. Yet there were also no fresh footprints around the site, no trail indicating where they might have gone next. It was as if they had simply evaporated into the forest. Investigators examined the area thoroughly. Forensics teams were brought in, and samples were taken. Nothing stood out. Everything was clean, quiet, and lifeless. The only odd detail was a small charm bracelet belonging to Mia, found hanging from a low tree branch just outside the tent, something Laura would never let her daughter leave behind. Despite the effort and the growing concern, no new leads surfaced. The searchers began to feel the weight of hopelessness. Each day, the forest grew larger, and the answers seemed further away. Still, no one was ready to stop looking. Something didn't add up. And deep down, everyone knew the forest wasn't giving up its secrets easily. By the 10th day, search efforts had turned desperate. The forest had revealed the Harper family's campsite, their SUV, and scattered belongings, but no sign of the people themselves. The area around the campsite was combed again and again, but no new clues emerged. With every passing hour, hope began to slip further away. Yet, the investigators pressed deeper into the woods, determined to uncover something, anything, that could explain what had happened. On the 12th day, a smaller team broke off from the main search grid to explore an old game trail leading into a lesser-known section of the forest. The trail was barely visible, overgrown with moss and shrubs, as if it hadn't been walked in years. After several hours of hiking, they came across something unexpected, another clearing, small, quiet, and unnervingly still. In the center of this clearing sat what appeared to be another campsite, though not one set up by the Harpers. There were signs someone, or something, had been there recently. Ashes from an old fire were still warm. Beneath the surface, stones had been arranged in a strange pattern near a fallen log, and hanging from a branch above were several twigs bound together in odd shapes, almost like symbols or charms. A few feet away, searchers spotted something partially buried beneath a pile of leaves. It was a child's shoe, muddy, worn, and unmistakably Mia's. It was the first physical trace of any of the family members since the discovery of the abandoned tent. The search team marked the area and called it in immediately. Back at the original campsite, investigators took another close look. Nothing had been stolen. Expensive gear, wallets, and phones were untouched. The campfire had burned out naturally, and the sleeping bags were still laid out neatly, as if the family had gone to sleep and never woken up. Even their food, sealed and untouched, was still good. There were no animal tracks, no signs of a bear or mountain lion attack. Everything was perfectly intact, and perfectly wrong. Then came the most chilling detail. Near the edge of the clearing, a local volunteer noticed something carved into the bark of a tree. It was shallow, almost unnoticeable at first. 4 stick figures. A man, a woman, a boy, and a girl, hand in hand. Beneath them, a single word, stay. The area was quickly sealed off as a potential crime scene, but no additional evidence could explain what had happened. The longer the investigators looked, the more the forest seemed to mock them with its silence. The Harpers had been there. That much was certain, but where they had gone, and why, remained as dark and mysterious as the woods that swallowed them. As word of the Harper family's disappearance spread beyond the local area, so did speculation. News crews arrived with cameras, interviewing neighbors, forest rangers, and anyone even remotely connected to the case. Reporters stood at the base of the trail leading into Black Pine Ridge, their voices hushed, their tones somber. It wasn't just a missing persons case anymore, it had become something darker, something no one could easily explain. Locals, especially those who had lived near the mountain for generations, began to talk. At first, it was whispers, half joking, half serious remarks about the forest having a mind of its own. But as more people came forward, the stories grew stranger. One elderly man, a retired park ranger, claimed he'd seen odd lights deep in the woods on foggy nights. Another recalled hearing low, rhythmic chanting echoing through the trees years ago, with no clear source. A woman who ran a nearby cabin rental said she once found symbols carved into her front door after guests reported hearing voices outside at night. The tales weren't new. Black Pine Ridge had long been surrounded by folklore. Some spoke of a curse on the land, dating back to an old settler family that had vanished in the same area over a century ago. Others mentioned a legend passed down by indigenous tribes, a warning never to stay past dusk in the Whispering Woods, a part of the forest where people claimed to hear things that weren't there. Though investigators dismissed these stories as rumor and superstition, the public wasn't so sure. Social media erupted with theories. Some blamed cults operating in remote areas. Others pointed to the supernatural, suggesting the Harpers had wandered into something ancient and dangerous. There were even posts linking the missing family to other strange disappearances in the region over the last 30 years, cases that had long gone cold. For the search teams, the pressure only mounted. They now faced not only the physical challenge of scouring a massive wilderness, but also the psychological toll of fear and uncertainty. Volunteers who once marched boldly into the woods began hesitating at dusk, casting nervous glances behind them. Radios crackled with static more often. A few even left the operation, claiming the forest felt wrong. Despite all the theories and growing panic, one fact remained: no trace of the Harpers had been found since Mia's shoe. No bodies, no messages, just more silence, more questions, and an ever-deepening sense that whatever had taken the Harpers wasn't something anyone could understand. 3 weeks to the day after the Harper family vanished, hope had nearly faded. The search teams had been scaled back. News coverage slowed. Tips grew colder. What had once been a frantic rescue mission had quietly turned into a haunting mystery, one that left more questions than answers. Then, just as everything seemed to go still, something unexpected happened. A park ranger named Daniel Moore was reviewing footage from a network of wildlife cameras set deep in Black Pine Ridge. These cameras, hidden along game trails, were meant to track deer, bears, and other forest animals. They triggered automatically with motion, snapping images or short bursts of video. Most of the time, the footage was uneventful: deer grazing, birds flying, branches swaying. But one clip, captured just 3 nights prior, stopped Daniel cold. The footage came from a camera over 6 miles from the last known location of the Harpers. It showed the usual quiet forest, dimly lit in infrared. Then, movement. A figure stepped into frame. Blurry, slow-moving, and just barely distinguishable from the background. It didn't register at first. But as the figure came closer, it became clearer: it was a young girl. She was barefoot, her clothes tattered and dirty. Her hair was matted, and she moved as if dazed or disoriented. Daniel leaned in closer, heart pounding. The timestamp matched. The size, the build, it had to be Mia Harper. The girl paused in front of the camera, looking around nervously. Her eyes never focused directly on the lens, but she stood there for nearly a full minute. Then, just before the footage ended, she turned sharply to her left, startled, as if she'd heard something. Her expression changed. Fear. She bolted out of frame, and the woods returned to silence. That single clip sent shockwaves through the investigation. Rangers and officers swarmed the area where the footage was taken. They found broken twigs, faint footprints, small ones, but no definitive trail. Dogs were brought in, but the scent vanished within minutes, as if the forest itself had swallowed it. Speculation exploded online. If Mia was alive, where were the others? Why hadn't she tried to get help? Who, or what, had she seen before she ran? More disturbing was the fact that the camera footage ended so suddenly. Not because of time or battery, but as if the device had simply stopped recording. For investigators, this wasn't just a break in the case, it was a chilling sign. After 3 weeks of silence, the forest had finally spoken. But instead of answers, it offered only more fear. Mia had been there. She might still be out there. But something else was, too. Something that didn't want to be seen. Authorities moved quickly after the footage surfaced. A new wave of search efforts was launched, this time centered around the area where the wildlife camera had captured the blurry image of the young girl believed to be Mia Harper. Search teams combed through the dense underbrush, retracing the trail, setting up motion sensors, and deploying drones with infrared scanners. The hope was that Mia, or possibly the rest of the family, might still be nearby, waiting to be rescued. But what they found only deepened the mystery. Just 50 yards from where the footage was taken, rangers discovered an old hunting shack, one that didn't appear on any modern maps. The structure was partially collapsed, hidden by overgrown foliage and moss, and appeared abandoned for decades. Inside, the air was stale. Dust coated every surface. But something didn't fit. The shack had been recently disturbed. A corner of the wooden floor had fresh scuff marks. Empty water bottles were strewn on the ground. A child's crayon drawing was pinned to the wall with a rusty nail. The drawing was crude, shaky. It depicted a tall, dark figure standing among trees, with 4 smaller figures nearby, 2 large, 2 small. None had faces. And above them, in uneven letters, the words, "Don't follow," were scribbled in red. That same evening, another camera, half a mile away, triggered again. This time, it captured not 1, but 2 figures. The first was smaller, possibly a child, walking with slow, heavy steps. The second was harder to identify. It appeared tall, thin, and almost unnaturally elongated. Its features were blurred, even distorted, like the lens couldn't quite focus. The camera recorded only 10 seconds before abruptly cutting off. When authorities reached the spot just hours later, they found the camera ripped from its post, its casing shattered, as if by extreme force. The footage sparked panic among the search team. Some members refused to return to the forest after dark. A few quit the operation altogether, describing an overwhelming feeling of dread when near the shack or camera site. They spoke of hearing whispering in the trees and catching glimpses of movement just beyond the beam of their flashlights. Despite this, the investigation continued. Forensic teams scoured the area, but results were inconclusive. No DNA, no fingerprints, no blood, nothing to prove who had been there, or what. Only those images remained. A lost child, a shadowy figure, and a warning scrawled in crayon. It was becoming clear to everyone involved. Whatever had taken the Harpers, whatever was now appearing in those woods, was something far beyond what they had imagined. The forest wasn't just hiding something. It was protecting it. As days turned into weeks, the investigation reached a crossroads. Despite tireless efforts by search teams, forensic experts, and volunteers, the Harper family remained missing. The eerie footage from the wildlife cameras was the only lead, but it only deepened the mystery without providing answers. The tall, shadowy figure and the child in distress haunted the minds of everyone involved. Speculation and fear hung thick in the air. Authorities officially called off the large-scale search, citing safety concerns and the lack of concrete evidence. The area was declared too dangerous to continue regular expeditions. Still, a handful of determined investigators kept the case open, studying the footage, revisiting the site, and interviewing locals who reported strange occurrences. The forest, however, remained silent, offering no clues, no traces, nothing but an endless canopy of whispering trees. The community struggled to come to terms with the loss. Vigils were held, candles flickering under the starry mountain sky. Friends and neighbors shared memories and photos, hoping to keep the Harpers' spirits alive. The story became a somber legend in the region, a cautionary tale whispered around campfires about the dangers lurking beyond the known paths. Online forums buzzed with theories ranging from the plausible to the paranormal. Some believed the family had fallen victim to natural dangers, wild animals, accidents, or exposure, while others insisted something supernatural was at play. The carving that read, "Stay," and the crayon warning, "Don't follow," became symbols of a warning never to enter those woods alone. For the Harper family, there was no closure. Their fate remained a chilling enigma, a haunting reminder of how quickly life can vanish into the unknown. The mountains reclaimed their secrets, and the forest kept its silence. And somewhere deep in Black Pine Ridge, the truth waited, hidden in shadows, watching, patient, and still very much alive.